Hello, truth seekers. Lawrence here, and welcome to Easy Enlightenment. So, here's a question to start with. What is the sound of one hand clapping? When you hear this question, it makes you think, isn't it? And some of you logically think and answer that there's no sound. A hand cannot produce a sound. You need both hands to clap to create the sound. And logically, you're correct. You need both hands to create a sound. A hand cannot create a sound. And there are jokes available in the world about the one hand clapping. Someone will ask, what is the sound of one hand clapping? And the other person will go, I don't know. And the person will slap on the face. That's the sound of one hand clapping. That is a joke. And there, in some culture, one hand clapping means when someone succeeds in life, but there's no one to celebrate with. That scenario is seen as one hand clap. Now, one is stupid, one is sad, but here's the question: what does it mean in the spiritual sense, in the spiritual context? The one hand clap, the one hand clap is true in the spiritual sense. And the one hand clap is the true silence. This clap, one hand clap, happens when the person recognizes his or her own foolishness in life. When the person recognizes their ego and its game, and give up the ego by seeing the truth, which is the true silence. And that is the one hand clap. Seeing the absolute truth is the one hand clap. Also, when you are receiving the true reference of the spiritual journey to shake you and make you realign to the real path, that is also seen as a slap. It's a mental slap. It's a slap for the ego. This is the personal experience of mine. I was in the journey to figure out the truth, and I was doing everything to make myself free from the fear, free from the mind. and and I can recognize that nothing is working to dissolve my fear, to dissolve the inner conflict, to dissolve the mental narratives. I was waiting for the guidance, and this guidance came in the form of words. And that was a slap on my face, a slap for my ego. And this simple word was, everything you know so far is an ego. What you know about yourself is all ideas. And all ideas are simply mental identification. And all mental identification is the ego. And the truth of who you are, or the absolute truth, is not an idea. So when these words came to my life, it was actually a slap for me. And that moment reorient me to align with the right path. So I see that as a slap on my face, a spiritual slap. Now, again, one hand clap is a philosophical context, and it is true. It can only be true when you wake up to your own true nature, which is not an idea. So, how do you make this philosophical context and make it real in your life? Is by doing the self-inquiry. Self-inquiry is the path to investigate all the mental layers that we cling on to see whether they are true or not. And this is the process to peel the layer. And peeling all the mental layer is the way to see what is true. Basically, you have to turn the awareness back to yourself, and you have to dismantle your mind. Right now, notice who you are is the mind. How you represent yourself in the world, there's a mental perception in you. There's a mental identification. You carry that mental persona and communicate with the world. And also, in a spiritual sense, you have the mental perception. So, and truth is not a mental perception. Truth of who you are is not a mental perception. Truth exists, but it's not the idea. So how to get to that is, how to get to the truth is by dismantling all ideas, peeling all the layers until nothing is left. And when nothing is left, and that's where you can recognize the absolute truth. So the process is that dismantling every layers that we cling on to, even some of the ideas that we hold on to and it makes sense in the world to communicate with the world to invite stability and some level of freedom in the physical sense. But when it comes to spiritual freedom, all ideas must be investigated until nothing is left. And that is the point where you can realize the plain sight truth. That's where that one hand clapping can occur. Without dismantling the mind, without dismantling the layers. In my experience, the freedom is not there. Even the freedom is you, which is you are the truth, you are the consciousness. That doesn't make sense. Even knowing you are the consciousness doesn't do anything until we do the work of dismantling. Dismantling the work is the must in the spiritual practice because of the pre-existing conditioning. We are already conditioned from our childhood until now. Every experience we go through in life brings an idea in us, and prolonging the certain ideas invites further conditioning in the person. And right now, everybody is conditioned. Unless the person is awake to the truth, then the conditioning doesn't bother. The conditioning has no grip on the person. But until the truth is seen, the conditioning is the trigger point. And conditioning is making live from the place of conditioning, which is the ingrained belief. And the ingrained belief, which is the past, is coming in the present. And in the present moment, life is unfolding to make the ingrained belief to be true. So basically the present action is reinforcing the belief. So moving from the past, being in the present, and re-anchoring in the past, and with that projecting towards the future, which is struggle. Moving from the past is already struggle. Bringing the struggle in the present when we move from it, and moving from the past, thinking about the future is bringing the struggle to the future. So we just, we have created this bubble, and we are living in the bubble. We're doing the work though, thinking to be free, but we are never leaving the bubble. So basically that kind of, if there's no recognition that we are living in the bubble, and not recognizing what is the action to get out of the bubble, then we stay in the bubble. So there needs to be a proper work in the spiritual journey, and the proper work is about turning the awareness back to oneself, and tracing the mind backward. tracing the mind backward. Why? Because the mind is the source of struggle. And you know that. So tracing the mind backward until nothing is left. And if you trace the mind backward, and if you are thorough in dismantling the mind by watching your experience, your conflict, your pain, your struggle, if you are watching and tracing back, and if you're unbiased in dismantling, that will make you thorough. That will make you understand what is mind, how the mind come into existence, and how the mind becomes a reality. The tracing back the mind makes you become thorough of the mind. Once you are thorough, when you ask yourself, who am I? And that's where the one hand clapping becomes real. Because at that moment, when you ask, who am I? You catch yourself. You realize how foolish you are in life. You realize that the ego cannot comprehend the truth. Your ego self cannot comprehend the truth, and your ego gives up. And that is one hand clap or slap in the spiritual sense, one hand slap on your face, and then you straighten up to anchor in reality. And that's where now life unfolds with ease, without drama. Until we get the one hand slap, the spiritual slap, the internal drama never ends. The fear never ends. The conflict never ends. The struggle never ends. Yes, there's a joy. There's a pleasure in life. But the conflict never ends. And the spiritual journey is about ending the inner struggle, ending the inner drama, ending the fear in life. If that is not there yet, then you need a slap on your face first, that everything you know so far is an idea and truth is not idea. Reflect on that. And if you recognize that everything you know so far is an idea or a visual effect, then you can reorient yourself. That's the first slap in the spiritual journey. And the ultimate slap is the total destruction of the ego. Okay, I hope this video makes sense to you to some extent. Only through the dismantling work, again, in my experience, I tried everything, but nothing worked until I involved in self-inquiry. And self-inquiry liberate me from my inner struggle. And from that, from my experience, I'm telling you this, that the journey to freedom from the fear, freedom from the inner conflict, is self-inquiry. Dismantling is the must. Okay, anyway, again, thanks for watching this video. I will see you in the next video. Take care for now.